Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am here today with Director Alarcon, our new Director of NDOT, the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure, which is a mouthful. So first of all, welcome to Nashville.
Thank
you moved
you
here from
much.
Tucson, and we'll talk about that later.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm really getting myself acquainted with Nashville very well. And yes, it is a mouthful, but it's an important mouthful.
What does NDOT do?
So we do a lot of things. So what's really great about us is we're actually able to now connect, I like to say, the dots. But we are really responsible for what happens in the right-of-way. So it's not just about maintaining what we have now, but how do we need to envision for the future. So really looking out and starting the conversation with the community, which we haven't really done in the past, of understanding what the community envisions for Nashville, and then plan and build out to that. And you know, that's in partnership with the Tennessee Department of Transportation, with the federal government, with ourselves, with the public sector. You know, it's all of those the private sector, excuse me, it's all those opportunities that we can to really build a sustainable, healthy, smart Nashville.
So, and you've got the bicycle pin. I know
do.
You brought a whole basket of pins. And
I
that's
do.
The multimodal part.
It
right?
is the multimodal part, and it's a really essential part. So, you know, one of the biggest challenges in transportation right now as a whole is we've built our communities just for cars. And there are folks out there that do not have the luxury of a car. And they are either using a transit option, their feet, or a bicycle. So that's why we're seeing a lot of deaths on our roadway. So how do we go about and kind of build out Nashville, our retrofit Nashville, I like to say, so we can accommodate all those modes in a safe way. And not really look at reducing the experience from a vehicular perspective, but how do we share the road so that everyone's moving safely, and also so that we're able to get people around. And as we build out, you know, it's very interesting. If we were to build out to meet peak time traffic right now, which is the worst time, it's what everybody hates. It's when you're stuck. It's what makes traffic word come to life. You're stuck there for 45 minutes, whether it's 24, 40, or even a downtown local road. You're stuck in traffic. Everybody's leaving and coming at the same time. If we were to build to that expectation, everything would be asphalt. We would not have any parks. We probably wouldn't have a lot of office buildings. We'd have just a lot of asphalt on the ground so cars can move. So it's really about re-envisioning how we're going to move as individuals, and then how that all fits so it also meets that expectation of quality life. How we extend everybody's front porch. And that's a fun conversation in transportation right now, but it's also a very personal conversation. And that's why I'm really excited about being able to have that conversation with the community as a whole.
I love it, and you touched on some things I want to ask you about, like Vision Zero, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But and we're going to actually get out on a drive today. So folks in District 7, we're going to be driving around, and you're going to see some of the challenges that we have, which you've just discussed. And northern Inglewood, but all of Inglewood and all of Madison was a suburban community, and now it's becoming more and more urban, and we're getting more growth, we're getting more children in the neighborhoods wanting to go to specific schools, and people are out walking more. And it's not just COVID. COVID, of course, caused a lot of people to get out and move a little bit more because we were stuck at home.
Exactly.
But beyond that, people want to walk their kids to school, and you know, whereas when the neighborhood was established, it was anything. It was fashionable to have two cars in the driveway. And so nobody wanted to walk even a block to school. You showed up in your nice fancy car, and that's what the neighborhood was designed for. So when we talk about recreating everything, it's going to be a journey.
You're absolutely correct, Councilmember. It is going to be a journey, but I think it's a fun journey. And I'm super excited that people are reconnecting with their own communities and looking for ways for that community to be walkable. It's smart, it's sustainable, but not only that, it's a health benefit. You know, a lot of us are not moving as much as we used to. So when we talk about creating these other safe modes for someone from 8 to 80, which is what we fashion it after, it's really important that we're creating that safe aspect so they'll use it. But then you get the health benefits behind it. And as a country, we're seeing more cases of heart diseases, diabetes, all of that. So it's really important that we think about this very consciously and safely so that people will use it and not be depending on that car, so that they will walk 2 blocks to drop their kids off and then walk back home. So it's a benefit for the kids and it's a benefit for themselves.
Absolutely. And I think that really ties into 2 questions that I have, and I think we might be able to tie them together, which is traffic calming and pedestrian safety / sidewalks. 2 years ago, I chaired a special committee on sidewalks, and we found what a lot of the obstacles are.
Yes.
Faye DeMassimo did a great job working on some of those. Jeff Hammond did a great job working on some of those initiatives, and some of them have been implemented.
Yep.
Nevertheless, Nashvillians want more sidewalks. We're not doing it fast enough.
Yep.
The other thing is traffic calming, and it ties right into it. If you're going to live in a suburban neighborhood and walk the streets, people want sidewalks there because cars are going too fast. And
Right.
so we need to calm cars down. There's over 200 applications backlogged for
Yeah.
the traffic calming, and
We're,
I know
we're knocking through it. We're knocking through it.
Oh no, and we just got one in District 7. We're thrilled about it. I know that your goal is the same as mine, which is fund all of them as
Yes.
quickly as we possibly can.
Correct.
In the meantime, what can we get people to do to be safe as pedestrians and also to slow down or calm the traffic?
So I think really what we need to ask the community is recognize that you may not live there, but somebody else does.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage, just like, they say treat someone like you'd like yourself to be treated, drive like you would like someone to drive in front of your home.
That's right. I think that's exactly right.
And so it really does come down to behavior. And that's really a majority of the crashes that lead to deaths and fatalities in our community are driven more by behavior than it is by something else.
Wow.
So my encouragement to folks is, and you see a lot of great commercials that are out now, leave on time or leave ahead of time, be prepared for traffic, because it does happen, because usually people all want to move at the same time. But, it's just encouraging people to drive like you would want someone to drive in front of your home. And if you have children, you're very conscientious about that. When I'm thinking about transportation, because it's personal, I have 2 young gentlemen who are, I have one who's off my payroll, and I have another gentleman who's actually in college. But as I was raising them, I always was in the world of transportation was, first of all, I want to build something where my kids would stay with me. And their generation's very different than my generation. So they're all into mass transit. They're into the buses, the subways, the streetcars. They're all looking for that. Their quality of life is around not having to own a car. So it's a different thought process. I'm not saying I understand it. It's just that's the generation. That's where there is, because they value more the time they can spend with friends. They value more that community feel. So I think transportation's moving back to creating that community. So I look at suburbs not necessarily being what they were originally designed, but that's a chance to create its own little community and then make that walkability within that community. But then how do we connect that community to the next community? And what's that safe aspect? And what mass transportation do we use? What walkability do we use? The bicycle network? All of that comes into play. So I know as a community we have a lot of gaps and we have a lot of challenges. I like to call them opportunities. But I do feel pretty comfortable that, we'll start knocking them out and being able to have some successes. So last year, thank you very much. Y'all supported a capital spending plan that gave us the dollars to start knocking it out. And then we've made the commitment to deliver more than 50% of it to Nashvillians this year. And we're already exceeding that. We're actually exceeding that 50%. And, my goal is to knock out as much as we can. So I have a backlog, or I should say, have a backlog not only in traffic calming, we also have a backlog in the sidewalk and also in the bicycle plan. So we're aggressively moving forward to get those built out so that it's safe for everybody, and then not just within your own community, but also the connectivity to the next community.
You said something in there. You said a lot of really good things, but no. We've got plenty of however much time. My constituents need to hear from you, and this is wonderful. You said something in there, a lot of great things in regards to NDOT, but the thing that I picked up on is you said, I have a backlog. And then you corrected yourself and said, well, no, we. But what I love about a leader is when they make it theirs, and you made it yours by doing that. And of course it's yours and
It
your
is.
teams.
Yeah.
But the ownership at your level is so important in the function of our government and in the function of this department. And that's one of the reasons why I'm interviewing you and you've been on the job 5 weeks is because I've been very impressed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do own it, and I am very passionate about transportation, but I'm very passionate about it being the right transportation. And I go back to, I understand it's personal. We all have a different take on that. But, what is that right fit for the majority of us so that we build it out where it's safe and it's available to everyone and we can make choices and what modes we want to use. We're not forced to get in our cars. So it's super exciting to build those relationships with other departments within the city. So working very closely with our planning department on how we do smart build outs, smart development. It's really great to be working with our water department on how we can build it so it's a great quality product that we're putting out there, working toward the flooding. I know is a very serious conversation for our community as well. So we're working really close. And then how do we connect all that with our parks? That's such an important part of it as well. So when I talk about connecting communities, it's also including those connectivities to the parks as well, because that's a quality of life issue. And that's really what we're all here for. We all go to work to make money, but at the end of the day, it's so that we have that opportunity, have that great quality of life, to have an opportunity to really raise our children in that safe environment, but also have that opportunity for socializing with each other. And as human beings, I'm one of them especially, I love the social side of life. And so I really want to make sure that I'm building it so it's safe and people get home to their loved ones every single day. But I need everybody to be part of that equation. So I'm going to speak to the group because safety starts with each one of us. And I need us all to think about it every time you get behind a wheel. A vehicle is a 4,000-ton killing machine if you're not driving safely. So I am asking everybody in the community, along with all of us here at Metro Nashville, to think about that, to be respectful when you get behind the wheel, watch your speed, because speeding is the number 1 killing fatality issue that we have here in our community right now.
And we lowered the speed limit about a year and a half ago to 25, the default speed limit, and I'm so glad about that. People haven't adjusted to that yet in all the neighborhoods.
That's where the traffic calming will help. But it's not the end all.
Well, my constituents know that I set my cruise at 24 when I drive the neighborhood, and I truly do.
Thank you.
And anybody who sees the yellow directional signs that say drive 20 around that curve, I drive 20 around that curve, and I've never once come close to hitting an armadillo, for instance, on Riverside Drive. So that is being the slow car in front of a bunch of other cars means you've slowed those cars down.
Yes,
and it's
ma'am.
a great thing.
Thank you.
Vision Zero is something, I only want to ask you a couple more questions because I want to keep this short for everybody, but I think we could probably do this all day.
I know.
Vision Zero, you are an expert in this. What is it? And you've talked a lot about it as we've been talking, but let's put it in the context of what Vision Zero is and what it means.
So just a little bit of context to Vision Zero. Vision Zero is actually a foundational change in how we think about the use of the road. It's actually over 20 years old. It was actually started out of Sweden. And Sweden folks over there, their transportation planners actually said, we have a lot of people dying on the roads with vehicular cars. That was their first emphasis. What can we do on their major highways? They were having a huge number of deaths that were occurring. So they actually started exploring options of how they can reduce the number of crashes. And they started by looking through engineering. So there is ways we can do better engineering of the roads so that it's safe. But when we get over here to the United States, we're saying, well, wait a minute, it's not about the car, just the car. We have a lot of transit buses. We have in different cities streetcars and subways that we need to take into consideration. We have bicyclists. We have a lot of folks that I actually have folks that are on my staff that use a bicycle as their main form of transportation to and from their job. And it's also about that pedestrian. And I always remind everyone, we start with our feet first. You get out of bed, you get dressed, and you walk to your car. You go to your place, wherever you're going to, you stop, you get out of your car, and you walk. So to me, highlighting the importance of pedestrian movement is number 1. So Vision Zero expanded when we brought it over to the United States to say, how do we move everyone safely on the roads without having fatalities? So Vision Zero is a plan that you put together that focuses in on 6 E's. Engineering the road. And let me just back up for 1 second. It's important that you apply all of the E's at one time, not one. So it's looking at how we engineer the road. What can we do better? How do we engineer that road to improve the safety? From the pedestrian, bicycle, transit, vehicular, and I don't want to leave moving goods. Train, planes, everything. It all, well, not planes because that's in the air, but soon that's going to be a problem because we are going to have flying cars one day. But it's looking at that. So engineering. The next thing is the education piece of it. I have to tell you, council member, as a new employee, before I can use a city vehicle, I had to take a defensive driving course. It was a 4.5-hour driving course. I took that course and forgot a lot of the basics. Couldn't believe it. Transportation, this is what I do every day. And I'm like, I totally forgot about that. So education plays a really important part because if I've forgotten, I know other folks are, and I'm in the world, this is my world, and I shouldn't know it, but I did.
And I'm thinking about the last time I took a driver's test. I don't want to give my age away, but it's been more than a couple of decades.
Well, I'm right there with you. So, so it's that education piece. What is the rules of the road? Then there's the side of encouragement, and that is how we all behave and how we use that road. And then there's also a side of it that I like to call, which is to me the one thing people hate the most, but the enforcement. I hate to say that. You have to have both sides of it. But
I think we want enforcement.
Yeah, enforcement plays a very important role. But there are ways to do that enforcement so that you're building the equity into it.
That's right.
And so that's part of the conversation. So even when I think about equity, I think about how it applies to all the E's, not just its own E. Sure. So we're building it into all of them. And then the last one, and I always use this for the last one, is evaluation. And the reason why I use that one last is because it's about continuous improvement. So it's taking and looking at what we've done from all of those E aspects and how can we do it better? How can we continue to improve? Technology comes into play that allows us to do it better. There's cars are getting smaller, cars are getting bigger, cars have computers, cars now have detectors. What is all of that we can take into consideration when we think about safety? So that's Vision Zero. It's really a foundational change in how we're going to behave and treat each other on the road, depending on whatever mode we want to choose, to get to 0 fatalities and serious injuries that occur on our roads. That's a good goal. It could be considered a lofty goal, but it's a necessary goal. Yes, ma'am.
One life lost, and you'll see in District 7 we had a couple of fatalities, and we've made improvements to those intersections. Yep. And Gallatin Pike offers us 2 opportunities. One, it has the highest ridership on the WeGo route in the city, and it also is the Pike in the city with the second most pedestrian injuries and fatalities. Yep. So we have a lot of work that we can do right in District 7. It straddles, of course, a couple of different districts.
But that's a win because then it's about helping our community.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
Last question for you, and I always like to wrap up with a fun one. So you moved here from Tucson. I know you lived in South Florida too.
Yes.
And you worked in transportation in both locations. But you moved here from Tucson, and it's a city known for its culture and for its dining scene.
Oh, yes.
Now, you've been in Nashville. You started about 5 weeks ago.
Yes.
So strangers coming to visit, a friend of yours is coming to visit. What do they have to do? What do you know so far?
Barbecue.
Oh.
So, Tucson has some of the best Mexican food. Actually, they have some really great food. It's really amazing. It's actually one of the leading in the United States, which, I remember reading that article and going, I didn't know we had all these restaurants. But then when I started actually visiting, I'm like, yeah, we have all these restaurants. But barbecue, I am really becoming a big fan of barbecue. And we actually had one family member that came. And that was the first thing. We have found a favorite. We actually have my husband and I have an apartment over in the Gulch for 6 months. We're in the process of finding a home. And right around the corner from us is a barbecue place. And we have just fallen in love with that place. So that's, when guests come in, that's the first place we go. And then right next to it is a little jazz bar that on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night brings in jazz musicians. So we've have taken them there, and we've fallen in love with that. So those are the fun things. And then, of course, we have had a chance to visit along Broadway and have enjoyed that. This weekend, my husband and I are going to explore the House of Cards and do the magic show. So we're just trying to really, learn all the different aspects about Nashville and what it has to offer. I will tell you, one of the things I was super excited about, and this is really silly, but I'm a huge fan of Maggioni's, the Italian restaurant, and they're not in that many places. So when we ran across Maggioni's, I'm like, I'm moving to Nashville. So I'm an Italian girl at heart, even though I'm Irish. I love Italian food. So we're just enjoying exploring everything. In the Gulch to downtown, the walkability is amazing. Mm-hmm. And I have a 2-year-old Scottish Terrier that's pretty much by my side when I'm not at work. And so that walkability is really important to me, and taking and walking my little puppy around. So we are really enjoying all of that. So not last weekend, but the weekend before, when it was cold, we got out. He made me get out and walk, which I loved doing. But we walked all the way down the West End and sort of made a big triangle and came back, and it was a great walk. It was just cold.
Yeah.
So well, I'm ready for the warm weather.
It's coming. It's
coming.
I know.
That I'm not used to yet.
This is not South Florida or Tucson.
Not at all.
30-degree day.
Exactly.
So, well, you have been a pleasure to talk with.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to get out on the road here in a few minutes.
Me too.
And I'm just thrilled that you're here with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your community.
And folks, we just want to remember, if you can be the slowest driver out there, you're helping. Drive on my street the way you want me to drive on yours. And as always, reach out for anything that you need. We're here to help. Continue to put those traffic calming applications in, and we will get those funded eventually. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon.